We went aboard the Curtis there, and 5 days later we pulled into Pearl Harbor. I just thought it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life, you know. I was on Gun 4. A guy by the name of Nick Gannis, he relieved me off Gun 4. We used to wrestle together. He was just a wonderful boy, and I really cared a lot for him. Funny thing, but I remember peeling an apple, and I heard this plane dive. What's a plane doing diving on Sunday morning? Bomb came right out of the bomb bay and exploded on the landing strip at Ford Island. About 7 or 8 planes came at us at the same time. There was near misses on both port and starboard side, but one hit right underneath the Gun 4 and killed 16 of my buddies. So we took all the injured and the dead down to the hangar deck, and the rest of them went by motor launch over to the hospital ship. Shook me to the core. I didn't lose my sense of duty or anything like that. I just done what I had to do. For we will always remember how they died for liberty. Let's remember Pearl Harbor and go on to victory.
I was raised in North Dakota during the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, the stock market crash. Probably the worst decade of our history of our country, maybe.
So you were in North Dakota when Pearl Harbor was attacked?
Oh, God, I remember that day so well. It was a Sunday, and my sister and I had been to a matinee. When we came home, our folks were sitting by the radio, very upset. And we said, well, what had happened? They said Japan had bombed Pearl Harbor. And I stood there, I was just a teenager, and I stood there and I said, I don't think I even know where Pearl Harbor is.
When did you become a Rosie?
My girlfriend's father was setting up housing, and we knew we had a place to stay for the summer. And we thought, well, this would be a lark, we'll just go out for the summer and come home. But the way it turned out, we all became Rosies. They took us downtown for 2 weeks training, and then into the big factory working on these huge bombers. They taught us how to rivet. First they taught us how to drill. They taught us how to buck. We always went in as a bucker. We were the ones that had to crawl inside the wings to buck the rivets, things like that. After a while, we realized the importance of what we were doing. And we just got into the swing of what was important, what our men needed. They needed this equipment. Of course, we needed to win the war. I mean, that was important. Back in the teenage, we didn't even know what a rivet gun was. I know we weren't afraid of war or anything at that time. Never dreamt that, what would develop out of it.
It's monotonous, really. Get up in the morning, eat breakfast, do whatever they tell you. I was in my bunk when the whole thing started, just before 8 o'clock. We went to the Navy Yard to repair boiler number 7. I heard the guns fire over my head. Then the GQ started. So I went to my spot, boiler number 7 boiler. The yard had finished all the work they needed to do. We had put the boiler back together. My first-class water tender, he says, come here. All the baffles from the steam pump were still outside. He handed me the baffles, and I put them back where they belong. By the time I got topside, we were out of sight of the land. Couldn't even see Hawaii at all. We got out unscathed. Not a mark, not a scratch. Nobody even got scared to death. So they call it lucky. Beforehand, There was a war going on, but it was in the Atlantic. We were in the Pacific, long way off. We didn't worry about torpedoes or anybody shooting at us. It wasn't going to happen to us until it did. The attitude changed. Peacetime rule book got tossed aside.
I was a gunner on the top of the airplane. Turret had twin 50s, and they turned 360 degrees up and down. It was about 1,200 rounds a minute.
Wow.
There's a lot of lead coming out of there.
Where were you when Pearl Harbor was attacked?
I was on Fort Island, right in the very middle. All the ships tied up around us. It was about 8 o'clock. I was just getting up. All of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Torpedoes going off, bombs, machine guns. Here comes this airplane off from the right, flew right past me. I could have hit him with a slingshot. I saw maybe 4 or 5 people on the deck wondering how to get off of the ship. Some people wanted me to help, and some were just afraid to be helped. But they had no choice. They either have to jump off into the water, take a chance on somebody saving them, or not. I took some of them off, and the ones that didn't take me up on it died. They burned.
John Carley is my great uncle. He is the youngest of 4 children. He was the baby. John joined one day after his 18th birthday. He wanted to be there. He had a very promising career as a baseball player. He decided he wanted to be there, and he joined. It was his first assignment. So he was on the Oklahoma when it sailed to Hawaii. He was a seaman first class, but I've not been able to find out exactly where he works. The family received a telegram dated December 20th of 41. The Navy Department deeply regrets to inform you that your son, John Albert Carley, Seaman First Class, U.S. Navy, is missing following action in the performance of his duty and in the service of his country.
On the guard, ready, hit.
I'm happy to say that he was identified at the end of 2018. He was buried with his mother and father May 1st, which was his mother's 130th birthday. I'm very thankful that we were able to bring him home, and I hope other families are able to do the same.
Today we came to pay our respects to our family member that is entombed on the USS Arizona, Harl Milson. I was watching a news program and they were doing a book club. They had talked about Don Stratton's new book, All the Gallant Men. Within the first few pages of reading, I noticed that there was a Nelson from Arkansas that Dawn has befriended on the ship. I realized that it was my Nana's cousin. Told my mom what I'd found. She immediately started doing some research so that she could possibly contact Don to let him know that we had found the book and we had appreciated what he had written about Harl.
My mom told me all about him. He was in the sick bay. Sad that he died on the ship. I like helping people put flowers into the memorial.
I was working nights at the time and had just settled in when my roommate came in and shook me and said, "We're at war, we're at war." It was so scary. He said, "We think we can take a bullet out, but this is in 1942, and they didn't do any part surgery." He says, "Miss Becky, if I ever get over this, will you go on liberty with me?" We didn't think he'd make it. I said, "Yes, of course." So that was in his mind, I think, when he went to surgery. And I was his nurse when he came back. He opened his eyes, and the first thing he said is, "We're going on liberty, aren't we?" And we got married on the first day of August. If I just pass it on to the children, it'll just be stuck away in a dresser drawer somewhere. I would rather have the people of Pearl Harbor know what the bullet was like, how big it was, and how well he got over it.
I don't know anybody that met him that didn't love him. He was a captivating man with just a joy and generosity that radiated from him. It was magnetic. He grew a garden every year, and I think that the garden is really the key to his longevity. He always grew enough that he could share it with the community. There were 4 boys and 4 girls in his family. I don't think there was a lot of money at home, and he was, in a lot of ways, responsible for helping care for everybody and feed everybody. When he turned 18, he hitchhiked to enlist. He got put on the USS Oklahoma. He had been working below deck, and he got a promotion, and so he was up on deck. He was loved in the community, so people would stop by and bring him food. He wanted to be home. He wanted to be self-sufficient. And so he got to live that way until his 102nd birthday. The nurse called and said he took a nap and didn't wake up, which was exactly what he would have wanted.
paid $21 a month, and you had a place to live. I heard some sailors talking about fishing, and I like fishing. I said, well, we travel around the world with the Navy and fish. That's how I got in the Navy. Well, we went to the band concert, and Francis went back to his ship, and I went back to Whitney. We were going to meet that day over to catch an 8 o'clock Liberty boat, and we see these airplanes coming over, and well, those crazy guys practicing on the weekend, what's the matter with them? One of them broke off, and it came down, I saw the bomb drop. I spent about 35 months in the tropics, taking people back and forth. Got 6 years in.
So what happens when an Arizona survivor returns to the ship? Well, after he passes away, his family has him cremated and put in a waterproof urn. The family then comes out to Hawaii, out to the memorial, for a funeral service that happens after hours. Toward the end of the service, the urn is carried back out to the boat dock that you just came from, off to the side, where the senior next of kin hands the urn to National Park Service and Navy divers. The divers then swim backwards across the water, holding the urn above the water, until they get even with gun turret number 3. Once they get even with that, they hold up the urn to let the family know this is the last time they'll see their loved one. Then, as taps plays, they propel themselves downward so that the last thing the family sees is the urn going beneath the water. The divers then go down, find gun turret number 4, they put the urn in, and they let it go. The divers say it feels as if the ship is pulling back one of its own to return to his shipmates.
This place is not in ruins today, left because of the efforts of the Pearl Harbor Salvage Division. They were responsible for restoring the fleet to operational status after the attack, and their job was to raise almost every single battleship in Battleship Row that was sunk, which they actually did for the most part. The only ones that are left is the USS Utah and USS Arizona. Utah is on the other side of Ford Island. They couldn't salvage the Utah because a lot of the efforts to right her in the proper direction failed. Whereas the Arizona was blown all the way down to the keel, and so they decided that was irreversible and they were just leaving. However, all the other battleships were raised. The first of which was the USS Nevada. USS Nevada was actually dragged over to one of the shipyards over there, and it was actually repaired around April in the same year. The USS California was actually very unique. They counterflooded it to make sure that it landed straight in the bottom. The consequence of this was that a lot of the interior of the ship was covered in oil, Some of the things they had to deal with were toxic gas and gas fumes. They were picking up bodies, and the environment was extremely sticky because of all the oil.